As the sun blazed down on the bustling strip mall, Jake Thompson adjusted his baseball cap and rubbed a hand over the stubble he had intentionally grown over the past week. The founder and CEO of Sweet Treats Ice Cream, a popular chain that had expanded from a single storefront to over 40 locations across the U.S., Jake looked vastly different from the polished businessman he usually was. His tailored suits and pristine haircut had been replaced by worn jeans, a faded university sweatshirt, and scuffed sneakers. Even his own mother might not recognize him now. One last glance in the car mirror confirmed his transformation. The non-prescription glasses he wore completed the disguise perfectly. Jake rarely visited individual stores without notice, but Store 12 had been keeping him awake at night. Something was definitely off there. Scrolling through the latest scathing online reviews on his phone, he muttered to himself, "Ridiculously overpriced for what you get. Prices change every time I visit. Total rip-off." The complaints had stacked up, all focused on pricing issues. Sales had plummeted by nearly 35% compared to the previous year. 3 different mystery shoppers had reported inconsistent pricing, yet the district manager's investigations had turned up nothing concrete. Store manager, Mark Johnson, always had plausible explanations that satisfied corporate inquiries. Time to see for myself, Jake decided, pocketing his phone and crossing the parking lot. The cheerful blue and white storefront of Sweet Treats Store 12 looked identical to every other location. The whimsical ice cream cone logo and inviting window display showcasing colorful flavor combinations were all in place. Yet, despite the warm Saturday afternoon, the store felt strangely empty, with only a handful of tables occupied. As he entered, the familiar sweet scent of waffle cones and creamy desserts welcomed him. The interior was spotless, with bright white tiles and gleaming countertops, but the atmosphere felt tense. Behind the counter, 2 young women in Sweet Treats uniforms were arranging toppings. Neither rushed to greet him, though both glanced up briefly. The taller one, Mia, nudged her coworker, who straightened up and approached the register. "Welcome to Sweet Treats," Mia said with a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her tired eyes. "What can I get for you today?" "Just a single scoop of vanilla, please, in a waffle cone," Jake replied, trying to keep his demeanor casual. "Any toppings for that?" Mia asked, already reaching for a scoop. "No, thank you. Plain vanilla is fine," he answered, thinking it was the simplest order to compare against standard pricing. As Mia prepared his ice cream, Jake glanced at the menu board hanging above the counter. Large photos of sundaes and specialty desserts dominated the display, but in the corner, the standard pricing was clearly listed, single scoop cup or cone for $3.99. "Here you go." Mia handed him a perfectly formed waffle cone with a generous scoop of vanilla. "That'll be $7.50. Jake's eyebrows shot up. A 50% markup from the listed price? His suspicions deepened, but he didn't want to reveal his hand just yet. "Here you go," he said, handing over a $10 bill. Mia returned his change without offering a receipt, another violation of company policy. "Enjoy your ice cream," she said, already turning away. Jake retreated to a corner booth with a clear view of the counter and a few other customers. The ice cream itself was excellent, rich and creamy with perfect vanilla bean specks. The quality that had built his brand remained intact. But something was clearly wrong with the operation. After about 15 minutes, the store emptied, leaving only Jake and the staff. Mia and her coworker, Sarah, began restocking supplies, their movements efficient but nervous. They kept glancing at the door marked "Office" at the back of the store. Their voices dropped to whispers, but Jake's corner booth was close enough to catch their conversation. "I feel awful, but if we tell customers the real price, Mark will fire us," Mia murmured. Jake froze mid-bite, his heart racing. "What do you mean?" he strained to hear. "I know," Sarah replied nervously, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Yesterday, Mrs. Reynolds, you know, the lady who comes every Thursday, showed me a picture she took of the menu board last week. The prices were different. What did you say? Mia asked anxiously, glancing toward the office door. I used Mark's script about new pricing not reflected on the menu yet, but she didn't believe me. I doubt she'll come back, Sarah sighed. Mia's shoulders slumped. He's charging almost double for everything and pocketing the difference. Last night, I saw him adjusting the register after closing. He thinks we don't notice. Jake's grip tightened around his cone, nearly crushing it. Everything began to make sense: the declining sales, the negative reviews, the inconsistent reports. Mark was running a brazen scam by overcharging customers and pocketing the difference while intimidating young employees into silence. Just then, the office door opened, and Mark stepped out. He had slicked back hair and an expensive watch that seemed out of place with his uniform. Ladies, he called out sharply, making both girls jump. Why isn't the delivery being unpacked? Those supplies won't stock themselves. Sorry, Mr. Johnson, Mia replied quickly. We were just finishing up the topping station. Well, hurry it up. Remember, we've got that corporate inventory check next week. Everything needs to be perfect, he emphasized, glaring at them before disappearing back into the office. Jake noticed the office door was slightly ajar. Through the opening, he could see a computer screen displaying what appeared to be financial records. Making a quick decision, he waited until both girls had gone to the storage area before casually glancing inside. What he saw confirmed his suspicions: 2 columns of numbers labeled "Reported Sales" and "Actual Sales," with substantial differences between the figures. Next to the computer sat a stack of cash that Mark was counting and sorting into envelopes. Jake retreated to his booth, his blood boiling. This wasn't just an employee skimming a few dollars, this was systematic fraud on a massive scale. As a family entered the store, Jake watched closely. When Sarah quoted them a price of $32 for 4 single scoops, the father looked surprised. That seems high, he remarked, glancing at the menu board. We've had some recent price adjustments, Sarah recited mechanically, avoiding eye contact. Jake snapped a few discreet photos of Mark at the register and the menu board prices. He noticed Mark's unusual enthusiasm when a delivery person arrived. Half the usual order, Mark said, ushering the delivery person into the office. Report the full amount to corporate. Same arrangement as last time. Jake strained to hear their conversation. You're playing a dangerous game, Mark, the delivery person cautioned. Only dangerous if you get caught, Mark replied confidently. With the district manager in my pocket, that's not happening. Jake's knuckles widened as he gripped his phone. The scam was deeper than he thought. Mark was falsifying inventory records and likely splitting the proceeds with the district manager. Determined to gather more evidence, Jake formulated a plan. He needed concrete proof, something that would stand up to scrutiny if Mark tried to deny everything. After an hour of gathering information, Jake decided it was time to conduct a direct test to obtain irrefutable evidence. Waiting patiently, he approached the counter again when Mark had retreated to his office. Hi again, Jake said pleasantly. The vanilla was so good, I think I'll try the chocolate this time. Single scoop waffle cone, please. As Sarah prepared his order, Jake positioned his phone discreetly on the counter, activating the video recording feature. You know, I could have sworn the menu board says $4.99 for a single scoop. Is that right? Sarah's hands trembled slightly. There's been a recent price adjustment. The single scoop is now $7.50. That's interesting, Jake remarked, ensuring his phone was still recording. When will the menu be updated to reflect these new prices? Soon, she replied vaguely, glancing nervously toward the office. Could I get a receipt, please? He asked, knowing it was part of the company's policy. I'm sorry, but we don't print receipts for small orders, she stammered. Eager to catch Mark in his lies, Jake raised his voice to attract attention. Every other Sweet Treats location I've visited gives receipts for all purchases. It's part of the company's transparency pledge, isn't it? Just then, a group of customers began to gather, sharing their own experiences of inflated prices. The elderly man who had been waiting behind Jake stepped forward. "Young man, I've noticed the prices changing here too." The atmosphere grew tense as customers began comparing notes, and Sarah looked increasingly distressed. "I can't lose this job," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Jake realized he had enough evidence to confront Mark directly. "I think we deserve an explanation from management, don't you?" he called out to the gathered crowd. The commotion had grown loud enough that it wasn't long before Mark stormed out of the office, irritation clear on his face. "What's going on here?" he demanded, scanning the scene. Jake stood firm. "Mr. Johnson, your menu board advertises a single scoop for $4.99, but I was charged $7.50. When I asked for a receipt, I was told you don't provide them for small orders. I find that suspicious." Mark's customer service mask slipped as he attempted to dismiss Jake's concerns. "If you don't like our prices, there's a supermarket down the street that sells ice cream." The elderly man interjected, "I've been coming to Sweet Treats for years. These prices have been changing weekly with no explanation." Jake continued recording as the crowd expressed their frustrations. Mark's facade cracked further when he offered free ice cream as a customer appreciation gesture, but the customers were not fooled. Jake raised his phone to call corporate. "Actually, I was thinking of someone a bit more directly involved with Sweet Treats," he said, dialing a number. When the corporate representative answered, the realization washed over Mark. "You're Ethan Thompson, aren't you?" he stammered. With the gathered crowd witnessing the confrontation, Jake revealed his identity. "That's right, and I need immediate access to the financial records for this store. We may have a situation here." As he ended the call, Mark's arrogance faded. "I can explain," he pleaded, but Jake cut him off. "You've been overcharging customers, falsifying inventory reports, and intimidating employees into silence. Your time is up." In the following weeks, the truth about Mark's scheme emerged. He was arrested for embezzlement, and the district manager faced consequences as well. Sweet Treats Store 12 underwent a transformation, with the atmosphere shifting from tense to cheerful. Jake returned to the store, where the employees were smiling and the customers were happy. He rewarded Mia and Sarah for their bravery, offering them scholarships and promotions for their integrity. As he placed his order for a simple vanilla cone at the correct price of $3.99, Jake knew that Sweet Treats had emerged from this crisis not only intact but renewed, embodying the core values of honesty and respect.